You've probably seen his pyramid, right? In a psych class, maybe business school, it's everywhere. But who was the guy behind one of the most famous ideas in modern psychology? Well, today we're going to dive into the fascinating and honestly pretty shocking story of Abraham Maslow. So right at the peak of that famous pyramid, you've got this incredible, optimistic idea, self-actualization. It's this belief that we all have this deep need for self-fulfillment, to become everything we're capable of becoming. It's a really inspiring vision of what humans can be. Here's the thing, though. The man who came up with it, his life was anything but inspiring. And that right there is the central puzzle of Abraham Maslow. This quote, it's from a textbook on personality theories, and it just stops you in your tracks, doesn't it? The most lonely and miserable childhood. So how does someone who went through that end up creating one of the most hopeful theories in all of psychology?
Yeah, so that's the paradox we're really going to dig into. How did this incredibly positive theory come out of a life filled with so much pain? The answer, it turns out, is all in his story.
Okay, so Maslow was born back in 1908 in Brooklyn. He was the son of Russian Jewish immigrants, and his childhood was, well, bleak from the get-go. He was intensely shy, felt inferior, and was just consumed by depression. To get away from anti-Semitic gangs in his neighborhood, his one escape was the library. He basically lived in books.
But it wasn't just the outside world that was hostile. The biggest source of his pain was actually inside his own home. And his reaction to that would shape literally everything about his life and his work. Listen to this. These are Maslow's own words from his diary about his mother. He hated her his entire life, so much so that he refused to even go to her funeral. He was convinced that his whole life's work, all that focus on kindness and love and human potential, was just a direct reaction against her. So what on earth did she do? Okay, brace yourself, because this story from his biographer it's just horrifying. When he was just a boy, Maslow found 2 abandoned kittens. He was taking care of them down in the basement. Well, his mother found them, and she was absolutely furious. And while he watched, she smashed their heads against the wall until they were dead. I mean, can you imagine? That kind of senseless cruelty was just burned into his mind forever. And this disgust with cruelty, this coldness, it carried over into his professional life. He tried studying law, but he quit, said it dealt too much with evil people. Then he tried medical school, but he was just repulsed by how detached and unemotional the surgeons were. So then he turns to psychology, right? And he finds that the big theories of his time were just as cold, just as bloodless. And this is what's so key to understanding him. At the time, you had these 2 giants in psychology, psychoanalysis and behaviorism. And Maslow looked at both of them and thought, this is all wrong. He saw them as being way too limited, way too negative, totally focused on what's wrong with people. So he decided to do the complete opposite. He said, forget studying the unwell. I'm going to study the healthiest, most well-adjusted people to figure out what our higher nature is all about. Okay, so we've seen what he was running from, all that cruelty and coldness. But where did the positive vision, the optimism come from? Well, it turns out he didn't find it in a textbook. He found it in actual people. Really, 2 things seem to have saved him. The first was love. He married his first cousin, Bertha Goodman, and that relationship was his rock, a source of love and support his whole life. And the second thing? Well, he was in New York in the 30s and 40s, and he met all these incredible European thinkers like Erich Fromm and Alfred Adler who were fleeing the Nazis. And they showed him a completely different way of looking at psychology, one that was about the whole person. And you can really see how these experiences started to stack up, one after the other. First, he gets that stability from his marriage. Then he gets this intellectual fire lit by his mentors. And all of that just set the stage for 2 last, absolutely crucial experiences that would lead him right to his famous theory. So in 1938, an anthropologist named Ruth Benedict told him he should go study the northern Blackfoot people. And what he found there, it completely changed his perspective. He realized that all the differences between cultures, they were mostly on the surface. Deep down, he saw this common, universal human nature, and that was a huge piece of the puzzle. It suggested that maybe, just maybe, there was a hierarchy of needs that applied to everyone. And then came the final spark. The moment it all clicked. It was a moment of absolute clarity, and it came from a global crisis that gave his life's work its ultimate mission. Right after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Maslow was watching this patriotic parade. And in that one moment, he had what he later called a life-altering insight. He just decided right then and there that he would dedicate the rest of his life to understanding what motivates us, to creating what he called a psychology for the peace table. And that, right there, is the real birthplace of the hierarchy of needs. And see, that's what makes his theory, he called it the Holistic-Dynamic theory, so special. It wasn't just some dry academic exercise for him. It was a mission for peace. And it all starts with this core belief that people aren't born broken or evil. We're all constantly motivated to grow, as long as our basic needs are met. And this is the roadmap he laid out. And just think about his own life for a second. He didn't have safety in his neighborhood. He didn't have love at home. His theory basically says you can't even begin to think about higher goals until those foundational needs are met. So at the bottom, you've got your physiological needs: food, water, shelter. Then you need safety and security. Only after that can you move up to find love and belonging, which, thankfully, he found with Bertha. After that, you need esteem, respect from others. And only when all of that is in place, only then can a person really reach for that peak, self-actualization, becoming everything you can possibly be. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, Maslow's life and work are just this incredible story, right? It's all about turning the deepest personal pain into this universal, hopeful vision for all of humanity. And man, did that vision have an impact, a massive one. He eventually became the president of the American Psychological Association, and his ideas, they're still used everywhere today. We're talking business, marketing, nursing, education. All these fields use his work to understand what really makes us tick. But here's the thing, it was never easy for him, not at all. In one of his very last journal entries, he wrote this. He admitted that his public image as this courageous leader was just a constant, exhausting fight against his own shy, timid nature. It always cost him. And that, right there, is the most important thing to understand about him. Maslow's optimism wasn't naive. It didn't come from some sheltered life where he never saw evil. No, it was the complete opposite. It was a hard-won, deliberate answer to the cruelty and pain he knew firsthand. It was a choice he made. I mean, Maslow's whole life was basically an answer to this very question. He took his own profound suffering, his own hatred of cruelty, and he transformed it into a mission to understand and champion human goodness. And really, his story leaves that same powerful question for all of us to think about.